In this Terraria video, we're playing the Demolisher class, which means I keep dying to my own bombs. But before we get into that, we first need to make my character, which no, I will not make a stereotypical Arab guy as my character design. That's just rude and high-key racist. Ah shit. So after being born into this earth, I was already put into child labour. So after getting some wood, I went mining for some ores until I saw this bomb looking building, and after a couple of seconds, it busted right in front of me. I mean, I'm not complaining. And then while trying to get the loot, I thought I could jump over this crater, and I just fell to my death. So in that chest was just a bunch of bombs with some weird quirks, so I just left them for now and continued to get some more ores and gems. So then looked at the recipe browser to find out how to actually make a weapon, and not just use bombs that destroy tiles. So while I was waiting for the Demolisher to spawn in, I started my elevator and also grabbed some more ores and life crystals. So once the Demolisher spawned in, I brought an iron snowman cannon which fires rockets and homes onto enemies. So now I felt like I could fight the Eye of Cthulhu and win with flying colours. So I made an arena and made some accessories that were made for the Demolisher class and waited patiently for the Eye of Cthulhu to spawn in. Well, I got impatient and after 2 minutes of waiting decided to continue making my elevator with some bombs and died not once but twice in the exact same spot. Eventually I made it to hell, then saw this thing and then went over to interact with it and not realizing it would summon a boss and I got manhandled by an element. I then made some gold armor and headed over to my jungle for another weapon and died in the most embarrassing way ever. I then made some potions, built an arena and fought the Brain of Cthulhu, since I couldn't be bothered waiting for the Eye of Cthulhu to spawn in and beat it very easily. And then straight after the brain was defeated, a meteorite crashed, and so I mined up all the ores and made the Melt Bomber armor set with the meteorite bars. Now onto the next and first boss of the TNT Terraria mod, which is the Coral Sheller Brood Mother. Won't lie, out of every boss you could have made up based on the mod called TNT Terraria, a crustacean is not what I expected. What I also not expected is how difficult it is to kill this crab. I then got all the materials to make the Hermes boots, since I downloaded the Fargo's Mutant mod for this exact reason alone, cause fuck trying to find the Hermes boots. I then made an actual arena for this boss, since I kept getting tossed around like Bonnie Blue in their prime. But I did manage to defeat the Brood Mother. After they were defeated, it dropped some really good loot at the time, like an explosive boomerang and a sentry weapon. Then while I was flattening out my land, the Iocophyli finally spawned in and it got obliterated. Then once I was defeated, I slept until the goblin army spawned in so that the goblin tinker would be able to spawn in, but first I went down to hell to get some obsidian and hellstone ores to make the hellstone bars, and then made the molten pickaxe and the golemic armor set. I then headed down to find the tinkerer, but he spawned on top of a mother slime and she killed him, so I wanted to exact my vengeance, but another one spawned in, so I forgave her and talked to the tinkerer. I then made the spectre boots and the hellstone snowman cannon, the hellfire cannon and the hellstone rockets. So the next boss I wanted to fight was this sulfur elemental, which I accidentally summoned earlier, and on the boss checklist, it seemed to be very happy. Anyway, I made some platforms for this boss fight and grabbed some potions and fought the sulfur elemental. Okay, well I died, but I fought it again and won. So once I got a new weapon, like this magic weapon that shoots out toxic gases, I want to fight Skeletron next. So I made an arena at this very high dungeon spawn and fought Skeletron with ease. And then explored the dungeon only to get the... So that happened. Anyway, as I was saying, I wanted to get the Cobalt Shield, which I did, and instantly made another arena for another boss called Captain Explosive. When summoned, there is a prompt that says whether you want the bombs to break the blocks or not, which I obviously wanted to make sure that I don't damage my land or my NPCs, and definitely not because I'm a massive pussy. So I opted for the bombs to not break the blocks, which I shouldn't have done looking back, since the fires way too easily, especially with the loot from the Sulfur Elemental. But the game is a game, so we move on. I then accidentally blew up some of my NPC houses. We built them and then built a pathway for the water flesh fight. I beat the water flesh and actually got the Demolisher emblem. after I tried to get some hard mode ores by mining, but I forgot in the base game, you need to destroy the altars in order to get the ores to spawn in. So I went to the Crimson biome, destroyed the altars, and mined some palladium, mithril, and adamantite ore. And while I was trying to find some adamantite ores, I got myself a new weapon, the crystal cannon. Once that was done, I made the adamantite pickaxe, the hazard demolisher armor set, and the adamantite rocket launcher, which I can't lie, were absolutely cheeks. And then farmed some salts of flight, got a new weapon called the elevated snowman cannon. Farmed some pixies for the pixie dust, got my ass beat by Skeleton Prime, waited for the blood moon to stop by being a pussy. Then I farmed a bunch of Souls of Night and Souls of Light, but while I was farming some Souls of Night, a Kaboom Crate Mimic spawned in and tried to suicide bomb me, but failed. And dropped an armor set called the Behemoth armor set. I then made all 3 mech boss summons, grabbed some potions, and once it hit night time, I completely obliterated my ego since it was a blood moon, so I'll just AFK to the next night. Then once night was upon us again, I destroyed all 3 mech bosses in one night. I then did the typical stuff like making the pickaxe axe, but I didn't make the hallowed demolisher armor set since the current one I have was still better. So I just went to the jungle to get some light fruits and to find a Plantera bulb to make an arena for the Plantera boss fight. But I legit tried to find a Plantera bulb for so long, like 20 minutes, but I still couldn't find it. So I just thought I could use a hoik to enter the jungle temple and just to bypass the Plantera boss. Yeah, that didn't work, so I just went out to find a Plantera bulb, which I eventually did, and damn, this crystal launcher is OP. I then went back to the jungle temple and fought Golem until I got the lizard explosive assault rifle. And then the next thing I wanted to fight was the Pumpkin Moon event, just for the spooky twig for the spooky wings, which I got. I then fought the Frost Moon for the snowman cannon, which I didn't get because I ran out of time. So my next armor set upgrade is the Heavy Lizard Bombard armor set, which actually uses my current armor set with beetle husk to make them. So the next weapon upgrade I wanted is dropped from the Martian Sorcerer. Now, I have no idea why the Martian Sorcerer is basically invisible, nor why doesn't it actually die, but I'm pretty sure it's a bug and died many times. But I did get the items I wanted except for the Cosmic Key, but that didn't matter. So honestly right now the weapons I have weren't really powerful, so I thought I could fight Duke Fishran for some extra weapons. So once I got the weapons that dropped from Duke Fishran, I fought the lunatic cultist and clapped its cheeks. I then fought the closest celestial pillar, which is the Stardust pillar. I then fought the Vortex pillar. Then with the Nova fragments dropped from the celestial pillars, I made the Nova snowman cannon and the hallowed rockets. I then fought the solar pillar and finally the nebula pillar and fought the moon lord. Yeah, the lack of movement accessories was definitely a huge factor here. But I did make the Celestial Sigil and fought and killed the Moonlord. So now, in order to make the endgame Demolisher armor set, called the Nova armor set, I will need more Luminite. But first I made the Anarchist cookbook. Dang, that's a lot of words. So I used another sigil to summon the Moonlord, kill said Moonlord, cried because I still don't have enough Leonite ores, fight the Lunatic Cultist, the Solar Pillar, the Nebula Pillar, the Vortex Pillar, the Stardust Pillar, and finally kill the Moonlord again. So now with enough Luminite bars, I finally made the Nova armor set, and the Vortex Wings. And the set bonus for the Nova armor is sick. It allows me to become a Platinum Star Terrorist. Like before I was kinda like a gold star with all the bombs, but now with the keybind I can blow myself up. So there is one more boss left from the TNT Terraria mod, which is called Captain Explosive Backup Plan. Now how bad can this boss really be? Like it's a backup plan. Who's gonna put their strongest weapon as a backup plan instead of their original plan? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna get the max amount of HP before I can fight him again. I then placed asphalt blocks and a couple of hot lanterns and campfires on them, but they won't last very long. So when I fought again, I wanted to deal the most amount of damage, and one of the weapons I used is the Super, Ultra, Mega, Gigantic, Impact TNT. Which sounds like something from Gurren Lagann. And I missed, and died. So not only did I kill myself, I made a massive hole. And then after dying many times, I finally beat Captain Explosive 2. So I finally killed the boss, and yes, I did technically cheat with the nurse, but fuck you, how about that? So with the loot from the boss, I now got an explosive melee, range, and summoning weapon. So I thought to myself, how easy would it be to beat this boss now? Nah, fuck this, I quit.